EA Sports dropped a proper gameplay video a few days ago, and there are already a few analyzing videos on YouTube, but all but one of them concentrates mostly on the graphics. And I do have a few things to say, but not that much about graphics. For me, the graphics on the Dirt Rally 2.0 are really good already. And I'm playing Dirt Rally 1 with the PSVR 1 because the VR experience is so amazing. But the resolution on the PSVR 1 is just horrible. And I'm a bit picky, but I still play it. But the frame rate luckily isn't too bad. And actually, the frame rate and the resolution look really sharp on the WRC 23. I'm really happy about that. So there are zero issues with graphics for me. Anyway, the main problem with Dirt Rally 2.0 definitely isn't graphics. It's in the car handling, which I think is the most important thing about a rally game, or car games in general. How they've done it in Dirt Rally 2.0 is that the tires are not in contact with the ground, but the car pivots around a center point, so it behaves almost like the car has a four-wheel steering, and actually the rear wheels seem to turn more than the front wheels. And it's a really cheap way to make you think that you're sliding a bit all the time, but it's not something that should cut it anymore today. Dirt Rally 2.0 has been criticized a lot about the pavement physics, and this is exactly what's wrong with it. The car feels as if it would be sliding all the time, although it doesn't slide, it just turns wrong. And more than that, the faster you go, the more pronounced the effect is. So a fast curve on a pavement, it's just ridiculous on the Dirt Rally 2.0. The issue itself is not at all limited to pavement though. It behaves just the same on gravel as well. But since the grip on gravel is quite slidey as it is, this behavior gets masked pretty well. One problem I've run into several times on Dirt Rally 2.0 is that if you're screwing around a bit, like I sometimes do, and you end up riding right next to a wall, when you try to steer out of the wall, it doesn't do that, because it tries to steer the rear end of the car against the wall, and of course that can't happen. So the car drives straight. And while I'm really not that keen on riding the Richard Burns rally train, I do have to say that this is what they got right. So, back to the WRC 23. Unfortunately, what we can see in the gameplay videos is exactly the same issue. They say that they have improved the pavement physics, but to me it looks like they have only increased the grip, nothing else. The car still turns around the center point and the tires are not acting as if they would be rolling on the ground. And I'm really deeply disappointed with that. And here's what I mean. This is on Dirt Rally 2.0. I'm driving at 20 km per hour and the rear tires are already sliding sidewards. The car doesn't really behave as if the tires were sliding, because this is just normal driving, as if the rear tires would have all the grip still left. And here's a front-wheel drive car, driving at 20 km per hour. Same thing. The car turns as if it had a four-wheel steering. And here, at 30 km per hour, the rear wheels are already following the front wheel tire tracks. Have you ever driven a car at 30 km per hour? No matter what you do with the steering wheel, the rear wheels, they don't slide. That's just not what happens. What I don't understand is that if they really have to make it this way because the game engine can't do any better, why didn't they simply move the pivot point to the rear axle? Because they seem to have the rest of the physics and behavior somewhat correct. I would think that way the car would have behaved pretty much correctly already. It's not like it would take any more memory or CPU. It's just a pivot point at the different spot. I made this demonstration to show how the car handles in Dirt Rally 2.0 and how it seems like it handles in the WRC 23 as well, and also how it should handle. This is basically how the car turns in these games. It rotates around the center pivot point, and it doesn't follow any friction that the tires would bring into the game. I wasn't able to code this perfectly, but this gives the rough idea how it works. The rear tires are sliding sideways in the turns because, again, it rotates around the center pivot point. For this to be reality, it should have a four-wheel steering. Now it would follow the direction that the tires are rolling to. But we don't have four-wheel steering. We have a front-wheel steering. So the rear end should behave very differently. And when you drive faster in the game, the pivot point moves even further forward, so that the rear tires appear to be sliding even more. Although the handling doesn't behave as if the rear tires were sliding yet. It's just a normal way of the car to turn, which is clearly wrong. How it should behave is that the center pivot point would be at the rear axle. This is how cars handle in real life. Now the rear tires move straight forward in turns, just like in real life. They don't slide sideways until you start pushing, but like we could see on the Dirt Rally 2.0, it behaved like this even at very low speeds, which is very wrong. They should move the pivot point to the rear axle because it doesn't require any more computing power. It's just a different pivot point. And this is what I really would like to see in these car games. And only when you start pushing it and get the car to slide, then it would actually slide sideways. Which of course happens a lot in rally, but it requires skill. My guess is that in these games they wanted to make it easy for the car to appear to slide. But all this does is making driving more difficult. We have all learned how real-life physics work since the day we were born. Having a driving simulator introduce new kinds of physics makes it unpredictable and it doesn't make sense. So we have to learn to translate on the fly how we want the car to behave to how it behaves in the game. The current system is very, very wrong. Then onto the suspension. Look at it. It kind of looks like out of a Forza. It really doesn't behave as if it were a rally car driving violently on uneven surface. And look at it here. Even when the rear end of the car goes out of the track, riding on what should be a really bumpy terrain, the car stays almost level all the time. There's nothing that looks like it would react to the surface it's riding on. And after the jumps, the car stabilizes right away. No car has a suspension that's stable. And all this makes it look like kind of an arcade style of a game instead of a rally driving simulator. And here, where the tires lose traction, when they regain the traction, it should be a bit like a violent event. But here, the rear end just gradually starts sliding less. And despite the added friction, you can see exactly the same dirt rally problem here. The tires aren't skidding, yet the car turns a bit like a hovercraft. The tires have zero attempt to roll straight. How the physics goes is that there are two kinds of friction. One is static friction that you have to overcome for the object to start sliding. And the second friction happens while the object is sliding. And the static friction is larger than the actual sliding friction. So it takes more force to make the object start sliding than it does to continue sliding. And that is what is completely missing in both Dirt Rally as well as the WRC 23 handling. When you turn a little, the tires slide a little, despite the fact that you really shouldn't be able to overcome the static friction just yet. That's a really cheap way to imitate tire flex and the car handling at the limit of its grip. Anyway, this was my rant. I love rally games and I really think that they are the most energetic and the most immersive driving games around. And don't get me wrong, the WRC 23 looks great otherwise. And I'm still going to buy it because I just need to get my fix for more tracks and the so-called improved physics. It's just that it looks like WRC 23 is nothing more than a slight update to the Dirt Rally 2.0. I might call it Dirt Rally 2.1. And I really hope that they get a PSVR 2 support down the line. Because if they do, the PSVR 2 is an instant buy for me. Just because the PSVR 1 on the Dirt Rally 1 is just so amazing. Playing Dirt Rally 2.0 on a flat screen TV after that, it's just so lame. If you ever get a chance to try the Dirt Rally 1 with the PSVR 1, don't do it. Just because you would want it for yourself so bad and you can't get it anymore. And I'm sorry if I crumbled your enthusiasm about the WRC 23. I'm still sure that it's an amazing game. Yeah, that should be enough. Thanks for watching. Bye.